Welcome back to The Inspired Entrepreneur with Heather Hope. Hey everyone, this is Heather Hope, and I'm back with the Inspired Entrepreneur podcast. I am recording one more for tonight. This is actually Thursday, but happy Saturday. I hope your Friday, I keep wanting to say 4th of something. I don't know. Friday the 13th was awesome, I guess. Let's see. So today is Saturday. Happy Saturday. And let's jump into, I'm looking up the message for today. If you're new here, this podcast was inspired by the book that I was inspired to write. And they both came in at the same time, right? I think at the same time. I'm pretty sure. I wanted to write a book this year. I started to write a different one, and then I let it go because I'm like, no, it's not coming through very well. I knew I wanted to write a book, and I knew I wanted to start a podcast because I like audio a lot. And because I did a lot of Facebook Lives, like live audios, and I enjoyed them thoroughly. So anyway, I was inspired, and I write a lot on my page, on my Facebook page. Not so much anymore, but I did for the past like year and a half, 2 years. And so I took a bunch, 366 366 posts basically. Well, they were all posts. I wrote a lot of them while I was writing the book. A lot of them, actually, probably at least 100 of them were never on my page. But so you get a page a day, and it's going to be in print, and it's going to be in print very soon. And you can have it on your desk or on your bookshelf, and you can flip to it each day or flip through it when you're having a moment. Flip through several days, do a fortune cookie type of thing where you just flip to a random day or allow Source to give you a date to look up. And so the podcast is that daily. I wanted to expand. I like writing shorter messages because my clients have told me for a long time that I have a knack for explaining things very simply. I don't get into writing long posts or long things and draw things out. I don't write like that. So I like writing short and sweet and to the point and very matter of the fact sometimes. And so that's what this book is all about. And the podcast is me just talking more, expanding on it, because I can speak more than I can write or type. So here we are. So I'm still looking for it. Let me look for it on my computer. I've got way too many tabs open. Okay. November 14th. It is an Abraham Hicks quote. I have a few of those throughout the book. How you feel is your indication of how much you're allowing yourself to be in the realizing state. This is super powerful. I check in with myself all the time. Guys, all the time. And this is how you really build that emotional stability. I can tell, gosh, I should record these at night more often because I'm more calmer. This is kind of how I am when I go on my group calls because I meditate right before them, and then I get on Facebook Live and I'm cool as a cucumber, and I'm gosh, I think I should have more energy for you guys, but I'm so chill right now. So I know I'm talking slower. Let me know if I'm talking slower, but it feels better. So I check in with myself all the time, all throughout the day, of how I'm feeling. And I truly believe that's how you build emotional stability. Now, what is emotional stability? It sounds kind of therapish-like. If you don't know me, I used to be a therapist for many years. Actually, really, really loved my career, loved my job, loved helping people. But now I'm I don't know who is helping who. Actually, not a whole lot of psychotherapy is super helpful, but being my client's person was really cool. brightening up their day was really cool. I worked with the seriously mentally ill for probably over 10 years as a group therapist, and just loved my clients. I mean, not every one of them, but you know what I mean. Most of them were just really cool people, and hanging out with them all day was just a joy. It was so much fun. So, um, and now looking back, I'm like, gosh, so many of them were not really mentally ill. They were just hearing voices and channeling basically. And like, I have a different perspective, like total 180 perspective now of all of that. Unfortunate, because I knew there was something more to it back then. I knew there was something that we weren't really understanding. Um, so here I am doing this. So, how you feel is your indication of how much you're allowing yourself to be in the realizing state. So, how you feel. So, having 20 plus years of major depression, I am doing a lot better. I am content. I think content is my baseline. And then I have lots of moments of happiness, lots of moments of getting excited, lots of moments of being hyper, lots of moments of, um, a very, like, rarely do I ever have a moment of feeling down. It's so like a second. You know what I mean? It rarely ever occurs, let's say, because I've practiced feeling good. I've practiced checking in with myself. I've practiced self discipline of how I'm feeling. I've practiced self discipline on what I focus on. I practice self discipline on not focusing too much on things that bother me. Now, I get angry. I get, like, politics. I can get very angry for a few moments or so. Um, just as a normal human reaction to things that I don't like seeing. But I have learned that if I continue down that road, it's not going to be good. It's not good for me. It's not good. And when I realize that when I'm not feeling good, that it's kind of like I'm disallowing all that I am and all that I'm capable of and all that I can have when I'm not feeling well. And so much of that, if not all of that, not feeling well is me allowing myself to not feel well. Like, going down that road of not feeling well. Like, if I'm watching the news, which I rarely ever do. Right now it's actually more, I've been watching more news on YouTube, like news, the last few days, just because it's more interesting to me. Now that the election is over, I find it more interesting. It's more like comical, but not, because it's kind of serious, but it's like, what is going on? But so it doesn't anger me like it used to. It's just more like curiosity of what's going on. And it doesn't really bother me much at all. It's just more like being informed for a little bit. But so now I gauge how I feel. Like, if something's bothering me, I kind of address it. Like, I stop doing it or stop thinking about it. Or, I read a Abraham quote today of, if you don't like where the conversation is going with somebody, smile and end it and walk away. And that is self-discipline of understanding, like, if you don't like something, move away from it. Don't continue the conversation. Don't continue things about it, because you ultimately get to choose what you have in your life, right? And I have a very strong I have a really strong stance with certain things in my life. Really strong boundaries, super strong boundaries with the type of people that I want in my life. And I have, and not everybody agrees with me. Some people do, but some people don't. I honestly don't care, but because it works for me and it doesn't work for everybody. I know that. Like for me, I've cut off majority of my family because they're awful people. So they've done awful things. So um, I cut them all off. Like I think I have one family member in my life at this point, my father. And that relationship is not close, but we speak. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's it. I've cut everybody else off. It was a pretty small family to begin with, and a lot of people have died off, but I did that years ago. I did that years ago. I cut off my own mother many years ago, 22 years ago. She was still in and out a little bit after that, but I don't know where she is, and I haven't spoken to her in years, because I wanted to be away from bad influences and a lot of, let's just call it bad influences, like really bad influences. And it was my choice. I chose pretty early on who I wanted to be around and who I didn't. And so over the course of my life, I've cut off a lot of people, just completely cut off. I'm really good at it. And so that may sound really harsh, but I became a happier person. I became more of myself because I wasn't around people that I didn't like. I wasn't around people that was a bad influence. I chose who was in my circle. And, the most successful people will tell you to do that. Like, who's in your circle? I'm super picky. I am so picky. I've been pickier about my friends than I've been picky about the men I date. I'll tell you that, or the people in my family. But now, then I got very picky, and you've heard this about my dating life, that I got very picky in the fact of like, or in the way of, I wanted to be treated better. I wanted better quality. I wanted to not play games, all that crap. And it was just, subject by subject, area of my life by area of my life over the years. I got, I had standards for every area of my life: family, friends, husbands. Now I got a really good one. You guys know that. So, I have standards. I've had standards of where I live. I have standards of the type of place I live in. I started, 25 years ago with my first boyfriend. We moved around a lot, but, I upped his standards. I live in luxury apartments. I live in, like now, I mean, I live in really large homes but I always, one of the things, I always live in a place with a really great view. I love views. I'm a Taurus, and I love like my home. I love my surroundings. I love my possessions. That's just, I am that personality. So I have standards. I live in really good neighborhoods. I live in really good areas. That's just my standard. It's always been. I grew up 4 blocks away from Scottsdale, like literally 4 blocks from the border, in a really nice neighborhood. My husband grew up in Scottsdale, just down the street on the other side of the border. And so I've always lived, you know what I mean? Like, I just have standards with everything. And once you create standards, that's your expectation. And it works. Does that make sense? Like, when you have standards with everything, like how much you get paid, who you date, areas you live, cars you drive, I always, not always, I always had like new cars. And then I upgraded to, like, a bunch of years ago, I upgraded to a Lexus, and then I sold that and upgraded to a Mercedes. And then had that for a few years. That was really cool. And then I ended up taking over my grandmother's car because she could no longer drive. And I paid that off for her, but I took the car and I still have it. So, and then this week I was talking about getting a Porsche Cayenne. That's one of our next cars, I think, and a Tesla. But, like you just create the standard. It's just like creating the belief of this is what I get to have. And forevermore, this is how it's going to be. Does that make sense? So it's like creating that and not budging from it. Like I don't budge where I live. It doesn't happen. I don't budge. That's just my standard. It's like, living, for years. It's been a while now because I've been in a house for many years, but, living in luxury apartments, I look at them now. The rents are so crazy and they're still the same, like for years, years later, the same apartment. And it's like, it doesn't look as good now because it's like 10, 15 years older than it was last time I was there. And it costs more. And I'm like, God, that's crazy. But because Phoenix is not cheap, let me tell you. People think Phoenix is cheap. It's really funny. Like I don't honestly think it's expensive, but when you compare it to what it used to be and what people think it is, it's like, I don't know, it's a lot more than it used to be. And a lot of things in California are cheaper than Phoenix. That's really funny. I did the comparison and we lived there for a while and it's really quite funny how people think that certain things are cheap and they're not. I don't even like talking about cheap or expensive, but going back to standards, like you get to choose who you are around. And sometimes choosing yourself is hard. I never found that it was hard. Not really. Maybe with certain people. But eventually I get so annoyed or pissed off or down or whatever it is that I don't feel like I'm being myself around them, or I've been a different person around them and I don't like it. That I end up walking away. Now it's freaking the easiest thing. It's just so easy. But I'm happier for it. I'm happier that I don't have certain people around. I'm happier that I'm not putting up with things. I remember, gosh, years ago, the first time I ever sat with a life coach. It was a friend of mine. She was a therapist and her husband was a life coach, brand new life coach. And I remember he gave me a list of like 300 tolerations. And he's like, I want you to go through this list and check off the things that you are tolerating in your life. And, I don't tolerate people anymore. Like, there's no point. I choose the people who are in my life, whether they're friends or family or spouses or whatever. I get to choose who I spend time with. I guess lucky for me, I don't have a very big family. So I hear some people, it's like they have really big families and it's pretty near impossible to break away from certain people. But you have to choose yourself. So anyway, how you feel, right? Going back to the quote, how you feel is your indication of how much you're allowing yourself to be in the realizing state. So feeling good. Feeling good. You don't have to be feeling joyful all the time. If you haven't been that person, it takes some time to move up that emotional guidance scale. It takes time. It's practice. It's creating new habits of thought to create new habits or new feelings, right? Your thoughts turn to feelings. And if you haven't been up in that high vibration for very long in your life, it takes some time. So I don't have the emotional guidance scale in front of me, but I know, get to a good feeling place. That's a good feeling place. but check in with yourself. So if you find yourself being angry, if you find yourself feeling frustrated, like say traffic or running late or anything like that throughout your day, just know that every time you're feeling that way, that tenseness, like if you're catching all the red lights and you're just in traffic and nothing's moving and you're frustrated and you're thinking all those thoughts, please remind yourself in those moments of like, okay, you know what? If I could relax myself, which means relaxing your energy, right? Relaxing that tension, let it go away. The traffic's going to start moving. I'm not even kidding. So this is what I'm talking about when I check in with myself. If I start feeling tense or annoyed or whatever, frustrated or pissed off at people in traffic or wherever, I pretty quickly jump in and like, chill, Heather, chill. This is how people get into accidents. This is how people become late. Like I'm really big about perfect timing now, like for a while now, but like running errands, like I have a bunch of errands to run and then I have like an appointment to make. And you know what? The other day I was talking about timing and I didn't even get into the story. And after I recorded that episode, I was like, dang it. I hate when I start something and then I forget to even talk about it. But one of the things I realized, this is, I was talking about superpowers as a couple, like Roger and I, my husband Roger. When we first started dating, he's a totally different guy than I've ever dated in my life. And he is like the uplifter. He's like a freaking super nice guy. He's not, I mean, he's a good guy. And he was just, he sees me like Source does, you know what I mean? And when you're with somebody who sees you like you're the most amazing person, you're uplifted. I think I just realized it just as I'm talking of what it is about him and how I'm affected by that. So when we first started dating, it felt like we were a power couple, just in the fact of we like just uplifted each other so much, just being in each other's energy and really appreciating each other, that we both just became like this superpower person. So, but one of my things is I'm always on time. Like I'm really good about time. And the more I say that I'm really good, the better I am, right? I just keep reaffirming what I know to be true. But I'm really, so I've always been one of those people that I'm always early. I started that in school, like when I was a kid. I was always, really early for everything. Early where I'm just sitting and waiting. And then I think with my ex-husband, he was kind of like, no, my ex-boyfriend, I think he was always late. He's just, like all over the place type of person. Manic, let's say. Always late. So getting that person to somewhere on time was always the goal. So anyway, so I'm always on time. I'm still early, but I'm usually right on time, like right on time. So anyway, when we first started dating, I just felt even more powerful. And so I was driving to somewhere in California. This is 3 years ago. And this is when I first discovered Pismo. But I was on my way somewhere. And I was traveling somewhere between like 7 to 9 hours. It was a 7 or 9 hour drive, somewhere in there. And I was telling my Airbnb host, I think it was from Phoenix to Ventura, somewhere like that. And I think I was telling my Airbnb host approximately when I was going to be there. And it was like, felt like such a superhuman thing that I got there exactly on time from the time that I told her I was going to be there. And it's like, I think it was 7.5, 8 hours, somewhere in there. But I told her a time, and I was literally like 3 minutes early. And I looked at the clock and I'm like, it surprised me. It really surprised me, because you kind of don't know when you're on a road trip the amount of times you stop, how long you stop. Each stop tends to be quite some time, because, it just seems to take some time. So it was just in that moment. And I remember that was the time I told Roger, I think for the first time, I'm like, we're such a super, or what was it called? We're such a power couple, feeling powerful, not like career wise, but like just as humans, that we're powerful together. And it felt like the things that I was really good at, I was even better at. Like I had a heightened sense of whatever, because we were together. Like I'm more powerful with him because I'm with somebody who just looks at me like, it's just amazing. Every single time I walk into the room or into his office or whatever, he looks at me and he has this big smile. It's just like, it's just one of those things. It's like, so 3.5 years later, no, we've been friends now for 11 years. And it's just one of those things. Like anytime I walked into the room earlier when I had him come with me for all these errands today, and I was all ready, and I walked into his office. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And then he looks at me and he's like, you are so beautiful. And I'm like, oh, that's sweet. I'm like, really? You're just saying that? He's like, have you seen yourself in the mirror lately? And I'm like, that's what his line was always like that. Have you seen you lately? He always said that. But anyway, it was just like, that's just like his normal way of being with me. It's just, he appreciates me all the time, like all the time, all day long. It's really quite interesting. So anyway, so how you feel is your indication of how much you're allowing yourself to be in the realizing state. So when I'm feeling good, I am realizing everything, meaning things are coming into my reality. I'm in the receiving mode for all the good stuff. I'm on time, no matter how much, today we had an appointment. I was buying a printer from somebody. After all these errands, I was supposed to be at his house by 4:30. We showed up at like 4:20. I was a little early, but that was after, 2 or 3 hours of errands and driving. Like, I think their house was like 40 minutes away from mine. So, it's like all of that. And then it was just, everything was perfect. We got everything on all of our lists, and everything was just perfect. It was just perfect timing, perfect time to go. Traffic was great. All those things. It was just, we were in the flow. And that's how I strive to live every day, is in the flow. Feeling good, allowing everything to come to me every day. Okay, I'm going to go. I can feel my throat wearing out. It's 10 o'clock now. So I hope you have a amazing rest of your Saturday, and I'll be back tomorrow, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.